So what is it that actually drives you, and is it adequate to drive you to accomplish the things that you say that you want to do? For example, if the engine that someone or something has that they have attached to the vehicle or whatever, if that engine and its capacity is not strong enough to be able to get it into orbit to where it needs to go, that engine may not be the appropriate engine. And here's what I'm sort of observing. When I'm in the mix with other really driven entrepreneurs and I hear or see some of the things they're doing, many times you see a big engine, you see a big vehicle that's these businesses or organizations that are really set up to go the distance. And that's amazing. But the reasons people are motivated are often different. And I've noticed at different times in my life, sometimes really detaching from being an aspirational entrepreneur, because there are a lot of things that really just I'm not motivated by. And as my values have shifted over time, as all of our values shift and adjust over time, we may find ourselves not motivated by the same things that used to drive us before. And so we may not have the same kind of drive that we used to have. There's a book, I think it's called Power versus Force, where the author breaks down a bunch of different emotions and he ranks them from the highest frequency, which is, I think, love and peace, all the way down to the lowest. And he's got a spectrum in between, suggesting that love is the highest vibrational frequency. It's the strongest force in the universe, which is really cool. And it doesn't take a deep study to look and recognize that there's a vibe that people give off, or that places have, or culture or whatnot. And it gives off a vibe. It gives off an energy that often repels or is really attractive. There's an energy to it. How does that energy connected? How does that drive translate on a large scale towards accomplishing big things? Let's say in entrepreneurship, or if you have a project or a vision or something you want to build, how does that work? And I know in different times, I've kind of wondered this. And recently I heard a couple of people that were talking about it. One of the guys was really going through it and he was saying, hey, like, how do you overcome, if you've gone through, used to maybe be driven in, his way was saying almost darker things, like things that he was trying to sort of battle and overcome and prove himself in some ways. And he's like, now I don't really feel that anymore, but I find myself getting to a plateau and then just being like, I feel like I'm good. I've accomplished a lot of stuff. His business is in a number of cities and he's doing, he's got great revenue, and he's just like, I'm at this ceiling and I can feel it. But he's like, I don't know what engine or how this engine can go beyond that. I feel like I've just sort of plateaued and I'm not motivated by a lot of the things I was before. And here I am. There was another gentleman he was talking with, and he was in their ideas kind of entering the discussion. He was saying how he feels like he's a little bit of a pushover in business. He was saying, he's like, I actually feel like I'm too nice of a guy. Many times I'm helping clients to a point, or people I'm working with, and I care so much about their success that when they're negotiating, he's like, sometimes he's like, I've seen millions of dollars in deals that I'm just too polite about to really be motivated to sort of like, negotiate for. And instead he's like, I care about people and I care about the work and doing a good job. And I'm like, I'm content. And one of the things that came up was, well, what is at stake? Is it just being polite with people? We can be polite with people, and let's just assume across the board, we're treating other people the way we want to be treated. But let's talk about the actual operations of business, the actual functioning, the economics, the systems, the growth of these things. To actually, let's call that the vehicle, the ship, to actually move those things in a meaningful way, you need to have an engine. You need to have that kind of fuel to propel it. And here's the suggestion. And here is, to me, the essence of this, which I think is so valuable. When I first heard the Power versus Force and heard about love, I kind of was a little bit like, All right, great. You're functioning at that high frequency and people like it and it's beautiful and harmonious and that's amazing, right? That's cool. But I don't see how it relates. It seems so disconnected from the world of business and economics and projects and how the world is like grinding and working. Until I realized this. If you're an entrepreneur, a business person, and you can have the ability to see a problem that needs to be solved, that you look and realize that problem is impacting the world in a way that it shouldn't be. There are people that are being impacted. Maybe it's people that can't actually do anything about it themselves. Maybe it's really young children. Maybe it's a horrible situation. Maybe it was a disaster that came through and just decimated an area. Maybe it's people that don't have the resources to be able to cross this chasm to get to a point where they're able to move into a more sufficient or better place. If you can perceive that from a project standpoint, from a business, from a practical problem solving benefit, and if you can connect that back to the fact that, hey, this is a solvable problem. And if you can connect that to, hey, if I or other people with those talents could, organize a bit, maybe get some resources or connect with the right people or companies or whatever, or maybe raise some money or just allocate some funds, that those problems could be solved. If you can connect those like points and sort of run the neurochemistry or the brain chemistry and connect those, create a pathway that will fire when you look and realize, oh, so when I or my team or others like that are care about these problems, when we have the resources of time, of money, of relationships to do something about it, that problem is no longer a problem. But if we don't have the time, the finances, the relationships, the resources, it's still a problem. If you can perceive that, then the essence of that problem not being solved seems to almost activate this, force for good. One of the terms that someone was saying was like, he's like, how do you, someone was talking about people who talk about wanting to be like a savage in like just going out and like, being motivated and being a savage in accomplishing their goals. Okay. Like I understand that primal energy, that desire, but to translate that to me, what is meant to be said is like that part of you that is actually like, why can't they have clean water? Why can't those children have a safe place? Why can't they have a protected space to not be preyed upon by whatever, whether it's man-made or it's a natural thing or whatever? Why can't that change? If that part gets activated and can become a pathway in the mind that the circuitry that you can regularly go zzz and see that, in my opinion, that is one way to activate and expand the capacity of what that engine is to drive positive change. And I would suggest that kind of engine would be more powerful than an engine that is just motivated by maybe something less consequential. So if you kind of went down, if you look it up, Power versus Force, that book, and look for the chart and see different things that are listed, greed, envy, shame, those are things that are rated the lowest level of things. But if you start to move up and you see the different things that motivate people, if we can move to a point where we're actually motivated by wanting to see conflict stop, see injustice, see where actual oppression, where there's violence, where there's need, where there's drought, where there's lack, where there's a lack of peace, where there's a lack of love for between neighbors, if we can activate that part of ourselves and build that kind of, people talk about laying the infrastructure for AI, wonderful. Laying infrastructure for, industry, amazing. If we could lay the infrastructure in our minds so that as things come up that we see can change, that we have like high bandwidth to move that and connect that and recognize, as I become a better negotiator, I can help with these problems. As I become more successful in business, I can allocate these funds. As I become a better problem solver, as I become more resourceful, as I actively help to elevate my network of people that I work with who are like-minded and similarly capable in their own respective ways, as we do this, these are no longer problems. There are real solutions for these things. So to me, to bring it full circle, the ability to be motivated beyond, like, I've got food to eat, I've got a loving, incredible wife and children, like kids and family and friends and community, and I have a safe home and land. Like, this is wonderful. Like, really, what do I need to drive me? How does the engine have more like power to it? I think that's the key, is within our own gifting and abilities to be able to perceive and expand that idea of who is our neighbor. And as we expand that to look and go, oh, those problems could be solved. And if I had these abilities, if I was able to become better at what I do in these ways, the result of that could actually mean helping to change or transform this really negative situation into something beautiful for them. In that respect, being at the negotiating table in business, in industry, being motivated to pioneer and find new solutions to do things faster, more effective, to lead your industry, to pioneer in a way where you are right at the top. You have your time back, you have your team, you have the finances, not just for the sake of it, but so that these things run effectively with ease and with excellence so that these problems can be solved. That, to me, is a way to build a powerful engine that's motivated for the right reasons.